This is Sally. She runs a small coffee company called Sally Coffee. The business is growing fast, so she is hiring for 4 open positions to help keep up with increasing demand, improve day-to-day operations, and support the company's expansion into new locations. This morning, her developer launched a shiny new careers page on her site. Applicants can browse the openings, fill in their name and email, and upload their CV. Take Lewis, for example. He is currently an assistant cafe manager at another company. He's been ready for a step up for a while, and when he sees Sally is hiring a full cafe manager, he thinks this might be his chance. He fills in his name and email on the application form. Then he opens his CV one last time to make sure it's polished. Everything looks good. He's ready to upload. But before he do so, let's watch both sides at once. Lewis is on the right, doing what any job applicant would do. Sally's machine is on the left. The dev folder you can see here is the root folder for Sally's coffee website. Everything that makes the site run lives inside it. There's an index.php file, which is the page Louis is looking at right now. There's also a folder called Uploads. That's where every CV submitted through the Sally Coffee website lands. If Sally opens it, she can see that 2 people have already applied, David and Sarah. Now, Lewis can drag his CV into the upload box. As you can see, the file was properly uploaded. Now he can click Send Application. There it is. Lewis's CV lands in the Uploads folder. A few hundred kilobytes of PDF sitting on Sally's server, waiting for her to review it later. The site greets Lewis with a thank you. Your application has been received message. From his perspective, the form worked exactly the way he expected. And from Sally's perspective, her new careers page is working too. Applications are coming in. The system is hiring people. But what just happened? The form happily accepting a file from a stranger on the internet and dropping it into a folder on her server is also exactly the mechanism an attacker would use to do something very different. And this is where Kim comes in. He is an ethical hacker and penetration tester. His job is to test the new careers page before the real attackers find it. Today, Kim is going to do exactly what those attackers would do. And what he finds is going to change how Sally thinks about every upload form on the internet. Let's dive in. But before we watch Kim work, you might ask, what exactly is a file upload attack? The basic idea is simple. Modern websites let users upload files all the time. Profile pictures, CVs, receipts, documents, customer support screenshots, and so on. The website expects a specific kind of file, usually an image or a PDF, and it expects that file to be data, not code. But what if the website doesn't actually check what you uploaded? What if you could send it a file full of code instead of data? If the file lands somewhere the web server can run it, the server doesn't know any better. It sees a file with the right extension, let's say .php on a PHP-powered site, and it does what it does with any other PHP file. It runs the code inside. The attacker just got the target server to execute their code, not in a browser, not in a sandbox, but on the actual machine running the website. That's a file upload attack. Now let's watch over Kim's shoulder as he performs the file upload attack. Kim starts the same way any attacker would, by looking at what the form accepts. He examines the upload form. There's no file type filter visible on the page, no PDF-only restriction in the file picker. The drop zone says PDF preferred, but preferred isn't a restriction, it's a suggestion. Kim has one more thing to check before he commits to an attack, namely, he needs to know what technology is running on the server. This matters because Kim's malicious file has to be written in a language the server actually executes. A PHP file means nothing to a Python server. A JavaScript file means nothing to a Ruby server. Kim needs to match his payload to the platform. The fastest way to find out what technology a site uses is to inspect its HTTP headers. Every response the server sends back includes metadata that the browser doesn't display. One simple way to view these headers is by using curl. So Kim opens a terminal and runs curl with the -i flags against the Sally domain. -i tells curl to fetch only the HTTP headers, not the full page content. This is called a head request. And there is the clue Kim was looking for. Now he knows the technology powering the site is PHP. The other way to view the header is through the browser's developer tools. If Kim opens DevTools, goes to the Network tab, then refreshes the page, and clicks the main request. He will see it there, X powered by PHP 854, which indicates the server is running PHP. Sally's developer didn't configure the server to hide these headers, which is common. Most servers leak this information by default. The X powered by header alone tells Kim everything he needs, namely this is a PHP site. Now Kim knows the server runs PHP. That's the language he needs his payload to be written in. He prepares a small PHP file on his machine called kimcv. He gives it that name deliberately. To anyone glancing at it, it looks like a CV. The file name even matches the pattern other applicants might use. The only thing that gives it away is the PHP extension at the end instead of PDF. Inside that file, Kim writes this short PHP script. 2 lines of PHP, that's it. Let's break down what it does. The PHP tags tell the server, this is PHP code, run it. Now imagine Kim later requests this URL. GetCMD looks at the web address the user requested and extracts the value of a parameter called CMD from the part after the question mark. In this example, Kim set CMD to who am I, so GetCMD will return who am I. Finally, system is a PHP function that sends whatever it receives to the underlying operating system to be executed as a command. So putting it together at a high level, this script takes input from the URL and passes it directly to the server's operating system without validation, then returns the result back through the web page. This file is a tiny remote control interface. Anyone who can visit it and add a $CMD equal parameter at the end can run shell commands on Sally's server and read the results in their browser. This is what's called a web shell, a script that turns a URL bar into a remote command interface. Real attackers use much more sophisticated versions, with file browsers, command history, and built-in persistence. This minimal version is just enough to prove the attack works. Now that Kim has his payload, he just needs to upload it to Sally's server. He fills out the application form like a normal candidate, typing in his name and email address. For the CV, instead of selecting a PDF, he selects the shell.php file he just prepared. The drop zone shows the file name. Notice the site doesn't complain. There's no "sorry, only PDF allowed" warning. The form is happy to accept whatever Kim hands it. He clicks Send Application. The site congratulates him. It even gives him a link to view the file he just uploaded. This is the first sign that something is very wrong. Sally's site was supposed to accept CVs from job applicants. It just accepted a PHP file from a stranger, saved it to his server, and helpfully gave the stranger a link to access it. Kim now just follow the link. But he's not just visiting the file. He appends a parameter to the URL, namely $CMD equal who am I. And there it is. Who am I is a Linux command that prints the current user's name. Kim just asked Sally's server, who are you running as? And Sally's server answered, I'm running as Sally. From here, Kim can start by doing simple reconnaissance stuff, like checking what system the server is running. For example, he might use something like cat /cos release to see the operating system version. That might sound harmless, but it actually helps him understand what kind of machine he's dealing with and what weaknesses it might have. Here he can see that Sally is using Ubuntu 26.04. This gives him a clearer understanding of the system's configuration and possible security implications tied to that specific version. But before he goes hunting, Kim wants to know where on Sally's server his code is actually running. He swaps the command to pwd, short for print working directory. And just like that, he finds himself inside an upload folder on Sally's machine. Now he wants to see what's in there. To do so, he can simply use the ls command, which lists the contents of folders. And there it is. Kim now see applicant CVs from people who applied to Sally's coffee company, hoping for a job. Kim might wonder whether he can access these CV files. Since the cat command can't open a PDF, he uses the PDF to text command, which extracts the text content from a PDF and outputs it as plain text. And just like that, the file opens. Now Kim can see Louis's resume, including personal details such as his phone number, email address, and work history. And it's not just Louis. It would be every single applicant who ever uploaded to this form. Resumes, contact details, salary information. Kim can read all of it or delete it. So how to protect against file upload attacks? The good news is that defending against this is well understood. The pattern is the same in every language and every framework. Here are the 3 defenses that actually work. Validate the file extension against a strict allow list. Ask yourself, is this extension on my approved list? A CV upload form should accept .pdf, maybe .docx, and nothing else. Block lists, like reject.php, .py, and so on, always miss something. Allow lists don't. Validate the file's actual contents, not just its name. A file called cv.pdf isn't necessarily a PDF. Anyone can rename a malicious file to end in .pdf. The safer check is to look at the file's binary signature and confirm it's the kind of file it claims to be. If the file's signature doesn't match its extension, reject it. Run the web server with the minimum privileges needed. If the web server runs as a locked-down service account with no shell access and no permission to write outside its own directory, the damage from a successful file upload attack is dramatically contained. Kim might still be able to read some files, but he can't pivot to the rest of the system. Defense in depth matters. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. See you there. Bye-bye.